Hi, I'm Torte de Lini. Okay, 7.37d has been released. On the one hand, it's not Chronefall Act 4. However, on the other hand, they nerfed a lot of staple items and heroes that needed to be dropped maybe a peg or two. Let's not waste any time introing this subject. Let's just drop down straight to the top 10 changes to know for patch 7.7d. By the way, if you like these videos, please leave a comment below about whether this patch went far enough or not. I hear the YouTube algorithm will hack Valve's mainframe computer to literally implement any changes we want. If you all like and subscribe this video too. So let's talk about Arcane Boots as number one. The change to Arcane Boots being more expensive and providing way less mana both in regeneration and when the active is used is not only pretty much long overdue and looking to stomp out a growing issue that we've been seeing more and more of. You know, carry heroes recently have been buying a lot of Arcane Boots because some carries didn't really need the stats for treads or phase boots. They kind of just opted for one of the fastest Arcane Boots purchase timings that we've ever seen. And it literally solved all their mana problems from the laning stage to the mid game, and as well as their laning partners being those pause 5 or even pause 4. For heroes like Medusa, Arcane Boots is completely understandable, but when you started seeing it on like Clinks, which was a few patches ago, Windranger, you started seeing it a lot, and Lina, kind of immediately hastening their farm for the next 15 minutes to hit an even earlier timing on items like Maelstrom and Gleipnir. I think then we have a problem, and obviously I think the developers agree here because it completely kind of overshadows the reliance on other carries who could never really hit those timings on those items nor extract as much value from the big mana bump that you got from Arcane Boots as the heroes I just named would. So the Arcane change here is not severe, but it delays the timing and it makes it all the less effective at what these heroes want, mana, and thus has a compounding effect over the course of a match. I think they also nerfed Guardian Greaves, if I remember, maybe just the cost. And so I think also it was all to affect kind of those mid-game aura item timings that we saw for some pause 3 or even pause 4 heroes that were buying Guardian Greaves. Great, let's talk about number 2 change. Pretty big one here. Bracer, I think Null Talisman, as well as a Wraith Band have all lost their double value gain after 25 minutes, and I think everybody can kind of feel the massive change in this, right? For starters, a lot of heroes kind of who filled their slots with these two items, or at least one of these items, and bought twice, like 2 bracers or 2 null talismans. They already lost massive value from this. So heroes like Windranger, Broodmother, other universal attribute heroes, I think even Magnus sometimes. Techies was another one. Techies would sometimes buy 1 or even 2 of these. They no longer get that big boost of stats and increased damage from holding on to these, which reduces their effectiveness at the mid-game mark of 25 minutes. What's more is that the choice between selling, let's say, Magic Wand or selling these early game items is kind of an all-important decision to make. Personally, I would still sell the Magic Wand, but honestly, against certain lineups, it might be justified just because you get a big boost of health and mana back. I think for a long time, the developers, this is 100% inference here, but I think the developers knew that these items doubling in value both held 2 issues. One is that the early game choices became kind of a chokehold, where instead of people buying, let's say, Falcon Blade or maybe an early Vlad's, it's kind of a long shot, that one, but the point was that players were kind of just opting for, let's say, a null talisman because it guaranteed to be more value as the game went on versus, let's say, Falcon Blade kind of falling off over time. The doubling of value also made it so that teams would try to play around that 25-minute mark to finish up their other key items and make a large power spike timing fight to secure their lead, just because these items gave so much value in stats. So pretty huge change. I'm curious to see what happens in the early game in terms of purchases. I think if they make items like Falcon Blade, for example, very easy example. I think if they made it slightly better, then maybe people would maybe steer away from these items. Maybe we'll see more Windlace buys, which we have been seeing for heroes like Huskar and Primal Beast. I saw it on Luna for a little bit there, but looks like it didn't hold. Maybe it'll come back into the fold now. Cool, Gleipnir. Gleipnir is number 3 change here. Pretty big one. I think everybody also understands what's going on here as well. Gleipnir's change in recipe cost and its reduction in stats is pretty much unsurprising to anyone. It was by far one of the most influential items at the International, as well as in the game right now, and it's pretty much necessary for any lineup to pick up. It was one of the reasons ranged core heroes were so popular last patch and will continue to be. If you hadn't noticed, they didn't nerf Maelstrom, just Gleipnir, and I think that says a lot about the transition from Maelstrom to Gleipnir. Was basically part of the issue where Maelstrom was massive value, but it was especially amplified by the fact that Gleipnir was gotten so quickly and gave so much in stats. So overall, honestly, good change. I think heroes are still going to buy Gleipnir, but at least it won't be as big of a blowout as it was before. I think this gives melee heroes a more fighting chance, a more comfortable chance. So about Disperser no longer having a full-blown unslowable effect when activated, now only provides 40% slow resistance is pretty brutal. While Disperser played kind of a mirror role to Boots of Bearing, but for core heroes, this change makes Boots of Bearing the only item choice to help players get out of slows and prevent them from being slowed further on. While the 40% slow is massive, not to say that it's not something that can be overlooked, it's not exactly the same, evidently, to, let's say, the unslowable effect as a Boots of Bearing. So number 5 change, I think is the number 5. Number 5 change, Solar Crest. Also another item that's been nerfed, got nerfed last patch. So the nerfs to Solar Crest and stats are pretty much in line with the changes they made to Solar Crest 7.37c. If you can't remember what they did in 7.7c, it's honestly just one line. They pretty much lowered the armor by 2, so from 7 to 5, I think. In this patch, Solar Crest gets a little bit more than that in terms of drops, you know, less health, less active shine values. So essentially, most supports were buying this item already first. Especially popular heroes like Omni-Knight, Tusk, I know bought a lot, Treant Protector, and it kind of influenced the mid-game team fights too heavily for carries and offlaners while being such an easy build-up for the support. So pretty natural change here. This adjustment makes Soul Crest not less desirable, but rather less pervasive in mid-games, so mid-game fights, so not every fight is pretty much a straight-up win. I do like this change a lot. I think Solar Crest was quite annoying. You probably didn't see it in your pub games because asking people to use items on your teammates is an impossible task, but definitely at the higher level, it was an issue. Number 6, Luna, my beloved. If you've seen my video on Luna, you can kind of see why they made Moonstorm faster and Lucent Beam just slightly weaker. I mean, Christ, the hero was a monster from start to finish, and while they didn't nerf her level 20 and 25 talents, which kind of gave the hero a second boon of opportunity to win after missing her initial in-game timings, which is around 30-35 minutes, they did reel back at least the damage you get from Lucent Moonstorm Facet when Lucent Moonstorm. That's the facet when casting it on an enemy, as well as the damage itself just being weaker, referring to Lucent Beam. I don't think this is honestly enough for Luna in terms of changes. Without the need to level Lunar Blessing, because now it's an innate ability, Luna shifts to being able to be kind of overly aggressive in the lane. She can farm her jungle really quickly with Moonglaze maxed second, and her late game talents makes it pretty difficult to shut her down unless you have the right lineup with you, or this happens a lot in pubs, no one got any crowd control initiators to help set up her engagements. I'm not talking about personal experience, I'm just mentioning it as an example. So I think Luna is still very strong. I think these changes are nice, but not exactly crying over it. So hopefully they make a few more adjustments to her effectiveness in farm, or at least in fighting. Ringmaster is number 7, right? Number 7, I think. Ringmaster finally has been nerfed, and it looks like they made him a bit less dominating in fights while making his spells all the more risky to pull off, which is, I think, the F-God. Tame the Beast, which is his Q, has its cast range nerfed, means that you will 100% need to get Aether Lens every game, unless you want to die casting Tame the Beast every time. What's more is that, and this is probably the most important one, is that Escape Act is finally dispellable. So now there's at least some possible way to handle Escape Act when initiating. But when you have to remember that Escape Act causes the target to be untargetable. So if you're thinking of items like Yules, they won't really cut it. They won't really exactly work. So only something like, let's say, Troll Warlord's Whirling Axes with Acceptor, or Brewmaster's Storm Bruling may work. AoE dispels is actually what matters most here. I think this is actually number 7 or number 8. Sand King's Dust Devil Facet has made a return, and it's still too strong. We see it also in the mid lane for Sand King, just a very powerful hero. The changes they provided where Sandstorm now has a smaller radius and lasts a much shorter amount of time means that your damage output is just less, right? I mean, there's nothing more really to say here. Reaches less foes as well. What's more is that your level 15 talent, which is I think right at my eye line, provides less damage overall. So basically your Sandstorm, which is one of your strongest abilities in the game, and how you dominate so well from the laning stage to team fights, is just weaker. There's not much more insight for me to say on the subject. You just do and reach less. So I think for team fights, when you have Bloodstone, the effect won't be as noticeable because pretty much everybody's dead before the full duration of your Sandstorm runs out. But the lead up to it, however, may have an effect, a negative effect for you if you like to play Sand King. It also means, honestly, the 28 seconds of the duration being the maximum time means that the overlapping use of your sandstorm it's much smaller, right? At 35 seconds, I think you had like 17 seconds or a significant period where you could literally cast a second sandstorm to keep the process going. Now it's not so large. So okay, Treant Protector. You know, each patch they will nerf Treant Protector until the hero is no longer a laning god. At this point, it's no longer a Treant Protector. It's more like a weed between, you know, gravel that you just pick out. That's just annoying. Or you put some pesticide on it, or I don't know what you do with a disgusting piece of shit like this. With the changes of Solar Crest and now even less movement speed from Nature's Guise, as well as Leech Seed doing even less damage or even less values, the hero is truly reaching, you know, absolute dirt level of value. I think we may start seeing Clockwork back into the mix if we haven't already, as well as an alternative. Maybe Lich is a good alternative instead of Treant Protector, but I mean, let's find out. Let's just see how much these nerfs actually affect the hero's popularity. The hero is really known for his laning stage setups and damage dealing and annoying. So I wonder if this is enough. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels like the hero is just getting absolutely buried really bad, 6 feet under at this point. Okay, last one, and I'm really hopeful. This is number 10, Windranger. Finally been nerfed even more. Finally the nerf we were hoping for Windranger. Gleipnir nerfed, early stat items nerfed, focus fires, rolling facet, rolling wind facet nerfed, arcane boots nerfed. And so the question is this the end of Windranger? Tough to say. I think so. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping this scares people away from picking her, but we'll see. Not only did it make it harder for her to reach her mid-game timings, but she's also significantly weaker as the game goes on. With Arcane Boots and Gleipnir being more expensive, she comes online later. With Arcane Boots providing less mana, it means she can't spam power shots so comfortably to farm as much anymore. And finally, with Bracers no longer doubling in value, it means her base damage and survivability is not jumping as high to capitalize on it with a dataless. Especially when it used to double at 25 minutes. Now with the Whirlwind Facet being nerfed, she does 5% less damage with only 8 seconds instead of 9, and she cannot do it as often with a higher cooldown at the final level of your Focus Fire. So all this really has a domino effect where Windranger is less and does less and has a timing where opponents can at least build up survivability to outlast her. And the question is it enough? Do you think this is enough? I personally think so. I'm hoping so, at least. I'm very optimistic. That said, I do recognize that people will prevail when they see something strong, and yeah, she is strong. That's no doubt. All right, Dumbo. So overall, these changes are pretty significant for a later patch and the lead up to Act 4, and hopefully a large patch with the release of the new hero Kez. I think a lot of heroes that were kind of pinching this meta into a very narrow choice of heroes have been sufficiently nerfed. But I also think that this doesn't fix some of the more core issues, like how there's just such a very narrow choice of mid-laning heroes. I think it's like Puck, Storm Spirit, Primal, I don't even remember, as well as range heroes becoming really a staple pick, which means not a lot of melee heroes. I'm hoping with the Gleipnir change that reverses itself. I also noticed, sadly, I didn't really get to talk about them, but I know some other heroes were worth mentioning, like Shadow Demon, Morana's a big one, Tusk and Lone Druid. But hopefully next time I'll be able to find the time to do that.